Welcome to episode 10 of Josh and Reid Are Parents. The guys had a busy summer, but they're back discussing how fear impacted their choices as parents, but also as kids themselves. And we get a preview of what is coming this fall on the pod. Welcome back, guys.
Guys, welcome back to Josh and Reid Are Parents. I'm Josh.
I'm Reid.
And we're parents.
We are parents.
Man, we have not done a podcast in too long. It's been too long, but our lives are insane. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a good thing, but they are nuts. And so we wish we could do more content through the summer, but we're gonna get more consistent here throughout the fall. I can feel it. Reid, tell me about your summer in Abilene.
Summer's been amazing. I got to go to Brazil for like 10 days in Brazil.
That's awesome.
And it was absolutely fantastic. It's their winter, so I got to escape the Abilene heat for that extent of time, that period of time. What a gift that was. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to take Amy and Henry were able to come this year, so that was sad. But it was an amazing trip, and just a lot of really good stuff happened this summer, and a lot of like good relationship building stuff with our students and the youth group and that sort of stuff. And so, but we're ready to hit fall and get back into that more consistent rhythm, if you like. So, yeah. What about you? How's school? Joe started school.
That's it. Yeah, we just started school. We are thankful for school. We had a great summer. We had a big baseball summer. But we got to travel a little bit here and there to see people. Joe got to go to Texas for a little bit. But like we crave at our house routine. Like we crave the consistency and the like as things go. We're better for it when we have it. So we're thankful for it. Yeah, Joe started third grade. He's killing it. He loves his teachers. Got a really good start to school.
That's awesome.
So we're really thankful for kind of where we are and what we need and what we have. So look, I mean, fall will get insane too, bro. But at least we'll have like some consistent schedule going on.
Consistent
with us, you know
insane
what I mean?
is better than sporadic insane, I think.
It's true. It's easier on us for sure. I'll tell you that.
Knowing that these hours every day are just like booked, like it's actually helpful.
Yeah. We have to pick someone up at a certain time. We have to eat dinner and go to bed at a certain time. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, it's not just like we could do these things. Like we could. Sure could.
We sure could. To know what we're doing is probably really helpful for us.
Yeah.
Fewer choices that I have to make is probably best for everybody.
Yeah, I'm pretty choiced out. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
That's why this is derailing already. But I always wonder about that with the whole like give your kids choices. It's like, do you think they're like I get choice fatigue? How often do you think they get choice fatigue? Where they're you just pick four. I don't care. You know?
Yeah. Do you want lemonade? Do you want milk? I don't know, man. Just put something in the cup.
Just like whatever, dude. You pick something.
Just get you
know what? How about this? Please. You roll the dice and pick in there, Dad. See what happens. Bring it to me, and then I'll let you know.
I'll let you know. That's usually how it goes. Yeah, I'll let you know if I feel good about it. Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about our pod too, and how much I've appreciated our conversations about fear.
Yeah.
Even just this summer, there was a lot of a lot of opportunities for me to kind of reflect a little bit on things that like I'm afraid of for me, I'm afraid of for Jonas, I'm afraid of in general, maybe in life. You know what I mean? And I think the conversations that I'm having, I think this is always true, Reid. Like the conversations I'm having with you has helped me kind of see like a little bit clearer in like the places I am in life. How often am I making choices and decisions and thinking about things as a parent, as a husband, as a professional, through fear? And if I can be aware of that, can I be aware of like different choices other than that, different opportunities to look inside of that? Is there a way to be more intentional and purposeful instead of just reactive through fear? And that's been really helpful for me. I don't know if that's your experience.
Yeah, no doubt. And I keep coming back to our like we've had a theme from episode, I don't know what, I think it was episode 1 or 2 where we started talking about grace-filled parenting.
Right.
Like it's been like 6 months ago now, I guess. But like, I genuinely come back to it regularly in my brain of like that image of the father who's like sturdy yet kind and all simultaneously holding all these things at once. And I'm like, I can be empowered to love like this. It's going to require this great courage.
Right.
That as a Christian only the Holy Spirit can give me. So I'm just gonna have to hold on for that to show up in this space while I wait for something to happen. And keep presence available and presence, not my presence to open, but although those work too.
Yeah.
If you're really wanting something, just give your kid a gift and see what happens. But yeah, so like those conversations around fear and navigating fear, being less reactive and more intentional and grace filled have been a blessing to me as summer is just bananas, and
Yeah.
I feel a lot less present as a dad in the summer, and
Sure.
so those were have been a gift to me to reflect on as well.
Yeah. I can imagine just like as a youth minister, there's like just so much, it's just kind of your busy season.
Yeah,
And so I felt like that too when I was a coach sometimes. Like I just like
dude,
I couldn't
yes,
be as
it's so
available.
similar.
And
It's a similar feeling. Yeah,
right, exactly.
yeah,
I think what's interesting is that we started these conversations in the series in our pod about fear, and I think what we're realizing is like I don't think this is a series. I think this might be something we talk about just all the time.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like
Right.
gonna have to be like a baseline conversation. It's just gonna be an underpinning reality through all of it.
Exactly. If
Yeah,
it, like, how do I approach this thing or that thing, or how do we talk about this? Okay, well, what am I afraid of? And then
yeah,
I can I'll be aware of that and be able to make choices and through intention. I think it's something that will consistently pop up. I don't think this will be something that we end here. But I think
right.
what is kind of interesting is that we can take other topics and maybe use this as a prism to look through, at least one of the prisms to look through to see if we can like find some things that are helpful, not just to each other, though I don't know, maybe that's primary, but maybe to people that are listening too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like we're opening up a support group for everybody to watch.
Right, exactly. Honestly, most of this is just for me and Reid to figure out how to parent our children well. Like I
Come on
swear to
in,
you,
the
that's most of
water's
it.
fine.
Get in here. Get in here. We're working
Get
on it.
in
We're
here.
working on it.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering like how we move from like just talking just strictly about fear into some of these other places
yeah,
that we want to move towards through the things that we've learned. And I think one of the things that could be cool and
yeah,
interesting inside of this, and it's been helpful for me as I've like kind of worked through this a little bit this summer, is to think not just about what I'm afraid of as a father, right? And how to
yeah,
parent out of that intentionally around that.
yeah,
But what was I afraid of as a kid? Right. And I think that really, really is helpful. It's one of the strategies I use in this room here actually is to think about not just what are you perceiving your kid going through, but like, can you remember what it was like to be 12 or 15 or 8? And the
right.
answer, by the way, the answer to that question is not really. You can't, but you can be intentional about trying to remember as much as you can. Right. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, Reid, as you think about that, like, do you remember obvious fears that rose when you were a kid?
Oh, limitless amounts of them.
Me too.
No, yeah, I remember being afraid of being perceived as weak.
Hmm.
I remember being afraid of being perceived as afraid. I remember being afraid. Yeah, I remember being afraid of. That was redundant. Of being
But
perceived
yeah,
perceived like as though I didn't know something. So like I had this. I still have it sometimes where I try. I've been working really hard to stop saying this phrase like I know. Oh, I know that. I probably don't. I'm probably just lying to you.
yeah,
Or oh, I think I knew that. You know, like whatever. Like it's okay that I didn't know it. I'm allowed to just
yeah.
not know some stuff.
All
There's a
right.
lot of stuff to know. I'm not Google.
Right, right.
I don't have a cloud of. I don't have a huge like all of a desert covered in computer cell to remind me of things. I just have one brain, and this one brain's doing its best, and that's
Yeah,
okay. And so I'm really the older I get, the more I'm like it's okay that I'm like not that I don't know everything, and so that
yeah,
was one for sure. And then I also had a great fear of admitting I needed things.
yeah,
I don't know what to do with that other than like that's one that still I'm like actually I need to work like that's an active
still there,
working in
right?
my heart of like
Yeah,
I'm allowed to like there's a difference in like being selfish and wanting stuff and there's also things that you're allowed to say that you need in life and so
sure, sure.
I think a lot of that is connected to like I was the middle of 5 kids and so it's just like we just hyper adaptable. I'm sure I've said this before in the podcast. I don't even remember, but
Sure.
like that hyper adaptability sometimes is actually just me just like rolling over and being like I don't need anything. I'm fine. It's like there are
Sure.
some things I do need.
Right.
Um, and those sorts of things. So yeah, so I think those are the first things that come to my mind.
Sure.
What about
Makes
you?
sense. Yeah, I like really similar ones. I think being a dude in the 90s, like in middle school in the 90s, like I think what I was most afraid of is looking weak or looking foolish
Yeah,
or looking like I didn't have together, right?
yeah,
Um and for me, like a lot of that was done inside of like a high academic achieving school and like a really high level like athletic program inside the school I was in. and
Yeah.
always being afraid that I was failing or looked like I was less than, right? Like, and
Mm.
because I think the bottom level of me was really just afraid of like not belonging to anyone,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so I would make choices out of that, as in like I would make someone else not belong
Mm.
if it helped me belong, right?
Yep.
And those are 12-year-old decisions that I wish I could go back to, but like, but I can see where I was coming from as a 12-year-old because like my fear was that I did not have a place and that my weaknesses would be
Sure.
exposed in that way.
Mm.
It would be the reason why I didn't have a place. And so yeah, so failure and weakness and lack of strength and like this lack of masculinity
Yeah.
that was like demanded of me when I was
Mm.
12 through like I don't know now. Um, I don't know. Like I think that was really, really overwhelming to me because I did not always feel like I had those skills to be like what the
Sure.
alpha impressive athlete was, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What when you say masculinity, what did you perceive that to mean then?
Well, I think that the people that I would consider most masculine were the ones I felt most intimidated by,
Mm.
right? The ones that were most afraid. And usually it really had like a physical component to it. Like they were literally just bigger and stronger and maybe even more attractive than me, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so it was this idea that like um, if I wasn't as strong or as impressive, I needed to be striving towards that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I was seen as a liability, like I could be made fun of, I could be ostracized, which were
Sure.
just terrifying to me as a teenager, right? Just
Absolutely.
overwhelmingly terrifying.
Yeah.
And so that was what was constantly in my head of like, it, by the way, which was so different than what my mom and dad wanted to be in my head, like about like, let's think about future and college and grades and good
Yes.
friends and Jesus. And I was just terrified that so and so was going to make fun of me in the locker room. You know what I'm
Seriously.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a lot of things that when you think
Mm.
about fears of that age, that's what rises.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it's weird, like no matter how much a parent might try to coach somebody out of that. Like I
Yeah,
remember that feeling too, and knowing like I'm not at the top of the pecking order. Like I'm not
right,
the coolest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the best at this, whatever this thing is. I'm not the
right.
smartest either. Like I'm not excelling at school without having. I would have to study a lot more hours than I'm willing to do. Like I don't have like I'm not the cream of the crop in any of these areas. So like I'm just gonna hang just below
Yeah,
and try to not be the person like you're saying that gets you know
yes.
just absolutely decimated in
As
the
long as
social.
there's someone below me, right? As long as
That's right.
someone else is more vulnerable than me, then I'm protected,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. And so like that's the thing I like I think helping like reminding ourselves why a 14-year-old says something that's so demeaning and so foolish, right? It doesn't come from a place of logic or awareness. It comes from a place of deep fear and deep insecurity. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
And
Right.
so when I approach that as a parent, I got to
Mm,
remember like, hey, what I'm not trying to say is like, oh, that's okay, man. You're just 14. No, 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 no. No. But
yeah.
what I am saying is like, I know where that comes from. And
That's
I
right.
like, instead of being completely terrified of it, maybe I figure out
Mm,
like how to approach it in a way that's helpful and constructive.
yeah. Yeah. Instead of demeaning my child out of demeaning other people.
Yeah.
I think
You
that
know,
can happen.
one
Go ahead.
question that rises to me,
Yeah.
Reid, is like, when you think back to that time,
Yeah.
do you think about, because I think about this a lot. I think about the dudes in the locker room and like even some adults that I was like, oh gosh, I'm afraid of them and I want to make sure
Yeah.
that they are on my side, not against me. Yada, yada. But were there any dudes that like you do feel looking back now, like you're really thankful? And I know there's like dozens of women, but when we're talking about from a masculine
Yeah.
standpoint, was there any guys that you were like, oh man, looking back, I'm really, really thankful that dude was in my life?
Yeah. I really do. This might seem like an obvious, easy answer, but I think my youth minister was somebody, Jason was somebody who showed me lived a different way of masculinity.
Yeah,
Um, Never domineering, never overtly. Um, I never heard him yell,
right.
even when people did things that were just like outlandish.
Bonkers.
Yeah, and he instead lived very courageously and intentionally into um like he was like we say all the time here, like he was authoritative, like he was um
Yeah,
we respected him so much at the same time, and this is like a small example, but he still let us call him Jason,
sure.
which seems like okay, whatever, but like it felt like a big deal. and for whatever reason. And
Sure.
but yeah, just his ability to um yeah, to hold space, uh to be non-anxious about the things that were going through, and in a world that was like so hyper reactive about everything that teens are going through, for him to be somebody that's saying like, actually, a lot of what's happening I think is okay and normal, and we're going to have to figure out how to be people of faith through this and in this, um as youth minister. And so that he's somebody that I just look back on, I'm so thankful for, um his the model of the way that he lived, because it was a lot less words and a lot more just the way that he was.
Sure.
So that was really powerful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think first of all, I know Jason really well. He
Yeah.
allowed me to work with him for a while, and he's a mentor of mine as well. And I agree with all of those things. Just his level of calmness has always been, I was always so
Gosh,
impressed.
it's crazy.
I know, man, that dude's nuts. Uh, I think about that too. I think about men in my life that like showed me the kind of masculinity that I really wanted to like hold on to now. I didn't necessarily understand it in those moments, but
Right.
I was just so blessed, and I really appreciate it. I think my parents intentionally worked hard to put really good men around me, all kinds of people around me, but
Yeah.
they tried really hard to put me in those places. And I'm
Mm.
just deeply thankful for it. I think of Matt Elliott and Van Conwell and these men that like were just tremendous like giants of faith that like I got access to on a daily basis. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
amazing. And I didn't understand any of those things at that time. I look back and recognize like, holy cow, how
Yeah.
big of a deal that was to my development and understanding of Jesus. Um, but I think one of the things that is so vital is about thinking about my dad, and in ways that like were really really formative to me. I think dads are really really formative to all children, but
Yeah.
the way that my dad was in my life was like kind of this larger than life character when I was a really small child, right? Like he was a coach, and like he was a really good athlete in high school, and he became a coach. And when I was born, he was like 4 years into his like high school coaching career.
Yeah.
And he was a great father, but he was a very intense and loud person because he was just a coach. He was a really good coach, right? And he was fiery and intense, and I adored him, and I was also just overwhelmingly afraid of him. He was just like this vision of a person that was just like I was
Mm.
so wanted his attention. It was just like he was just overwhelming to me in a lot of ways. And I think when I was 11 years old, he recognized that. He recognized that I was overwhelmed by him at times.
Yeah.
And he had not had a really wonderful relationship with his father, and he was intentional about saying, I want a better relationship. I want a better way to communicate the way I feel about my son to him.
Yeah.
And like he straight up like he went to therapy, Reid. Like he went to therapy, and he figured out new ways of like how to talk to me in ways that I could hear, like ways of being gentle, working on stuff from his childhood.
Wow.
It was it drastically changed our relationship and really drastically changed the trajectory of my life, I
Yeah.
think he showed me gentleness and intention in ways that like A was not as his instinct and his normal way of
Yeah.
thinking about it, because not just because it was the right thing to do, but because it was right for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so it really did, I think it's one of the reasons why I'm in this seat. I think it's one of the reasons why I parent Joe the way I parent him, is because he was like, my son needs something different than what I'm giving him, and I'm going to find a way to get it to him. It
Gosh.
was just a
Yeah.
huge deal in my life, you know? So that
Mm.
was really formative to me.
Yeah. The courage in that era to for men to go therapy, and maybe I don't know, maybe there's different people experience it different in different cultures, but like
Sure.
therapy was something that like even growing up, my thought about therapy was that's what somebody does when they're in crisis
Right.
or when they're weak and they can't hack it.
Yeah, that's
That was
right.
what I
There's a
actually thought
weakness
about
to
it.
it, right? Yeah.
Right. That was what I actually thought about it for a very long time. Um, and and for your dad to be somebody of such courage to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to figure this out. And it was just a like because he loved you enough to do that.
Right.
Like like we talk a lot about grace-filled parenting. Like that,
Yeah.
man, that's amazing.
Hmm.
That's an amazing amount of courage. And what a beautiful story of
Hmm.
what that can like what God can do in somebody that's willing to be like, I need I need to figure out a better way forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It has made me, it is the, like the kind of foundation of my story and like my
yeah,
belief in the way I see the world and the way I see the Lord and the way I see myself. So
Yeah.
I think it's massively significant. And I think about that a lot as I talk to people in here, not just like they need their dads to be that. I think that's part of it, but also just like
Mm.
what are young men in these moments of hard moments of crisis, of difficulty, and maybe just in 2024 in general, like what is it that they need? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like what is it that young men in this era need? And like Reid and I always like want to make sure that the listeners understand inside of this. What we don't want, what we're so careful about trying to communicate is that what we're not saying is that we need to like focus on what dudes needs more than what girls needs or whatever like that. It's more that like that he and I are trying to figure out how to raise sons, right, and raise them well, and raise them in
Yeah.
ways that
Yeah.
that the world needs, right?
Mm.
And also that we want to be not we want to raise them outside of toxic masculinity, like that we
Right.
don't want the alpha dudes like strong and intimidating and mean and like to be the ones that are their like goals, like their mentors, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
who they're striving for.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really, really important conversation for it. I don't know. What are your thoughts are
Yeah.
there, Reid?
No. Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's a void in the conversation publicly because I think a lot of like guys like us, we just talk about it to each other a lot
Yeah,
and in our friend group and stuff, like with other friends. But for it to be a public conversation, I think is actually important. There are some people having it where it's important too, but for a model that's not just men need to be dominating again, where
right.
instead it's like men need to be men are allowed to be strong and kind. Men are required to be compassionate and courageous.
Yeah,
And it's a both and situation. And so an invitation to parent my son in a way that is like um, I don't know, um, less concerned with his standing at school on some random pecking order that's created that we all
right.
know exists in every room you've ever walked in, and
Sure.
way more concerned with whether or not I'm equipping him to be somebody that exudes um, the fruit of the spirit,
Right.
um, or another generative list of great attributes of
Sure.
that sound like that. So
Yeah.
so I think that's what I run to.
I like what you said about like the idea that there's conversations that are happening in places and like a lot of times in not necessarily healthy ways in public, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not often the way that I perceive this, and I think a lot of times the way young men, and that being our children's age versus all the way up to like college age kids, are hearing one of two messages. Either they need to be these hyper masculine, like strong, like overwhelming kind of things, or they need to like not be toxic, right? Like it's
Right.
one or the other. And I think what we need to do, I think what is needed is something to be like, so it's not just the negative, like to not be toxic. There's something here to be. Here is
Right.
the way that we head towards. And I
That's right.
love the fruit of the spirit. I think there's some really, really beautiful things, which by the way, are not classically American masculine, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think is really, really cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So an invitation into those things, and as we kind of go in this conversation further in the next few episodes, we're going to try to get some guests on to help us kind of think through ideas and ways that we might be able to do that well and naturally without it being like I don't know, just more stuff to do. Sometimes it feels like that
Right.
where it's just like, hey, here's 10 more things to put on your to-do list.
Right.
And instead an invitation into like how can I naturally just be uh, strong in a way that's going to then model, which I think is why I mentioned Jason, but like in a way
Right.
that I model for my son what it looks like
Right.
to be a man.
I think we're gonna wrap ourselves back around to sturdiness, man. I think we're gonna find. I don't think it's the only thing we'll be, but I think that's where we'll come back to inside of
Yeah,
some of this is like,
yeah,
how do we find that sturdiness inside of hard moments,
yeah,
and help our kids find that too? I don't know. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes and the conversations we're able to have. Um, yeah, dude.
It's gonna be great. Let's keep talking about it. What do you say?
Yeah, we'll keep talking about it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. We love doing this. If you want to give to our Patreon, we have that up and going. I'll
That'd
link
be
it.
awesome.
I'll link it
That'd
in
be
the show
awesome.
notes. That's a thing, right? Link it in the show notes.
Totally. That sounds like really professional podcasting.
Sounds like podcasting. And yeah, let's do it.
All right. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for listening.